Hey everyone, Shadowstreak here, doing another one of these discussion type video things again. Some of you may recall that I did one of these just about 2 months ago with another YouTuber, Pie Guy Rules, where we talked about the 15th anniversary Dance Pants special. And I figured, you know what, that one went over really well, so I'm going to do another one of these with a very special friend of mine, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Bug. That's my introduction.
That was a great introduction.
Yeah, thanks, but maybe I should elaborate. Yeah, my name is Bug. I go by Bug. It's not my real name, otherwise I'd have very interesting parents. But I do run a blog online. You can access it at Bugeyedfreaks.com. And it's where I talk about the Powerpuff Girls and all sorts of stuff about the show and about why I really love the original show and about why I think the reboot kind of smells and just, anything I'm thinking about the Powerpuff Girls. It's usually on there. So definitely take a look at it later, maybe. Don't do it now. Listen to this first.
Yeah. I've plugged Bug stuff before in a few of my videos, so definitely check it out.
And I thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. But yeah, anyways, today we are going to basically be sitting down and giving our thoughts on the recent 4-part special that aired for the reboot this past weekend, which at the time of recording hasn't aired yet, but it will by the time the video's out. It's called Small World, for those of you who may not already know. It's basically this year's multi-part special, the way the Power of 4 was a huge grand event last year, although this one was
huge grand event.
Yeah, I mean
huge grand event.
Okay.
I mean, you could call it that,
for the wrong reasons. But yeah, this one.
I mean, World War II was also a huge grand event, but
That's very true.
Yeah.
This one wasn't nearly as heavily advertised or pushed, though, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if over half of you listening to this didn't even know that it existed, because it was basically pushed out silently.
I didn't even know about it until you told me about it, and I was just like, oh, that thing is still happening? Oh, brother. All right, well.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I'm one of the last people that still follows everything on it, but that's a whole other story.
You're doing a good service for humanity.
I guess you could say that. But before that, I guess just to kind of give everyone a general idea, since most people already know how I feel about the show, what are your general opinions on the reboot as a whole?
Ugh. That's my opinion. No, it's just, oh man, I mean, I honestly, I wish it had been a good reboot. I never go into talking about the reboot and going oh yeah, I always thought it was going to be a disaster. I think it's stupid. I think it's awful. But I honestly was really, rooting for the show. I was apprehensive about the show, because it's a reboot of something. Reboots they're not always the best. But, I was hoping, well, maybe it'll be good. Maybe it'll get better. And unfortunately, it just hasn't. And I've been honestly thinking about this just as my opinion of as a whole as to what went wrong with the reboot? Why is it the way it is? Why did we get this? And I think there's a whole lot of reasons. And of course, people have their reasons there's not enough fighting. And the weirdest one, I think, is it's all about comedy. Because I'm wait a minute, the original show was all about comedy. Hang on a minute. But
very true.
Exactly, yeah. But I think just what it boils down to is, and I think this is something that we're really going to talk about with this series of episodes, is it's just bad writing in general. There's a lot of things that are inconsistent, a lot of times where you're just kind of wait a minute, what were they trying to do here? And I really think the writing is what it really just gets down to in the long run. And of course, there's, like I said, other stuff, the art is crazy and, everything. But, I just honestly feel it's the writing. And it definitely shows it shows in every episode, but a lot in the ones that we're going to talk about.
Very, very true. So I guess we may as well not stall any further, and we'll just get right into it with the first part of the 4-part special, Small World. This episode was specifically titled Abra-Disaster. So judging by the title alone, you can kind of tell that magic's involved in some form. A general synopsis of the episode that's provided on the Cartoon Network website claims this. After defeating Mojo for the umpteenth time, the Powerpuff Girls are confident that they are unstoppable.
Oh my god, well.
Like, before we even get into the episode, that premise alone is like the antithesis to what the Powerpuff Girls are in this show. When have they ever been unstoppable?
They've been intensely stoppable. They've just... I don't even know what's up with the girls in this show. They just get... They'll like they'll get in like maybe one punch, two punches, and then like completely obliterated by the enemy, and then someone has to waltz in and save the day, but it's typically not the girls. And that makes me so sad.
Honestly, I'm tempted to just like go through every episode and just look at all the different ways that the girls get defeated, because it's like in one episode they get knocked down by a rat tail, and then in another episode they get shot by glitter, and then in another episode
Bubbles' even broken arm. It's like, oh my gosh, what in the, like, I don't know. They're very stoppable if they can break their bones.
Seriously. But anyway, so this episode does begin with the girls fighting a bunch of villains that show up. Like, there's the Gnat who returns from previous episodes, like Muzzle Cup and the Power of Four. There's, funnily enough, Fuzzy and the Amoeba Boys show up for a very, very, very quick one-shot cameo. They don't have any lines. They don't do anything. It just shows them getting hit really quick, which I thought was interesting and worthy of note.
And honestly, when I started watching the episode, I was like, wait a minute, they're actually fighting crime? Things are happening? Yowza, this is interesting. What a turn. And like, I haven't watched the reboot in a very, very long while. I don't even remember like what the last episode was that I watched. But I was like, oh, well, maybe things have changed since I've been away. And I was like wholeheartedly like, ooh, well, I can dig this. I can accept this, but it will go downhill soon.
Yeah.
As it tends to do.
So yeah, but Mojo then shows up and the girls also attack him as well, which is another rare sight to behold because, I mean, how often do we see the girls actually punch a villain in the show? Most of the time they either hurt him indirectly or whatever. And he gets teleported away out of nowhere. He's captured by this villain named Lester Von Luster, who basically is this kind of evil magician guy. His whole shtick is that he has magic, and that I guess his big claim to fame is that he shrinks things. Like he shrinks the Eiffel Tower into a keychain, and there's shots in the background of him shrinking things. Like I think there was a Mount Rushmore. Yes. There might have been some statues and things like that.
And what's interesting about him is when he first started getting introduced, like, the character design of the character kind of makes me think of, like, I don't know, like, maybe, like, an artsy type of villain. Like, maybe some villain who would use art in some way. Because he's got, like, all these colors on him and everything. And he also has, like, hair that kind of looks like a paintbrush, even. Like, there's one shot of him, like it's just, like, his portrait or whatever. And it looks like a paintbrush, but he shrinks things. Like, there's nothing consistent about, like, his design and, like, what he does. I don't know. It's a weird, strange thing that I noticed.
Yeah, I'm gonna be completely honest. The first thought I had when I saw him, I was like, this dude looks like a cupcake.
He kind of does.
Legit. I don't know. It just looks like he has sprinkles and like his hair is like frosting with sprinkles, and I don't know. Anyway, that's just kind of what I thought. But I also think he's voiced by Dwight Schultz, and for those of you who know Mung Dahl from Chowder, that's kind of the voice that he puts on here. I don't know if you've seen Chowder at all or not, but yeah, that's all I could hear the whole time he was speaking was this other character from another show. I don't know if that's for sure, but I'm pretty sure it was him based on the sound. But yeah, his whole goal in capturing Mojo was to essentially recruit him. And something that's interesting to me is that Mojo looks up to him as like an idol, like he's this big name villain.
Yeah, this is something that really actually bugged me, like right off the bat about this, because we know Mojo. Mojo works alone. He's not like in the original show, he was always saying stuff like he's not a gun for hire. He's not working with people. And when he was working with other villains at first, even if maybe like they did start working together, like eventually, it was always kind of like I'm not gonna work with you, like he doesn't like other villains because like they're stepping on his turf, like I don't know. I think that it's not very convincing for him to be like, oh my god, I look up to this guy, and him being like a guy in general. Mojo doesn't necessarily really like humanity anyway. So I thought that was interesting. And also, yeah, like I said, like, he's stepping on his turf. Like, yeah, so what? Maybe he's a great villain, but Mojo's the greatest villain. What's he doing with, like, somebody he looks up to? No, he wants to, like, take over Townsville. It's weird. Like, maybe it could happen, but it definitely didn't feel convincing enough.
Yeah, and I also agree with you there, because like the only case I can even think of something like that happening is like in the original, occasionally he'll look up to him, but that's more of like a respectful look up, not as like an idol per se.
Yeah, and that was even in like the first season when they were still trying to figure out the characters. Later on, it's like, no, he's head honcho, he's monkey number one.
Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't really compelled to look at this new villain as some kind of like authority figure or like this very reputable guy because, well, first of all, this is the first time he's ever appeared, so we've never heard of him before.
Yeah, and also that's, exactly, yeah, we don't, like, why should we care about him? Like, Mojo cares about him, but like we need reasons as to why. He just shrinks. Exactly. And his whole thing is he just shrinks things. Oh wow, that's super evil. No, it's not. It's stupid. like that's not even like a crime. It's just like some weird like hobby he has of like turning things into tiny things. It's just like a thing. It's not necessary. Like, okay, yeah, maybe it is evil to like steal the Eiffel Tower, but like, honestly, it's not the crime of the century.
Well, maybe his masculinity was threatened, so anyways.
Anyway.
Knows?
But it's definitely not convincing enough to make him, like, the best, like, and a villain that, like, Mojo would look up to, like, I don't know. I don't buy it, show.
Yeah. Plus, they had to throw in a kind of he noticed me joke, so I kind of groaned at that. But anyways, the girls, and this is another thing that I don't get. The girls just apparently, we see them in front of Mojo. They're about to like punch him in the face, and then he disappears. And then it cuts to Mojo meeting with Lester, and then it cuts to the girls at home playing a video game, and they just like shrugged it off. It's like, nothing strange or peculiar happened here. Like I'm pretty sure Mojo disappearing like that
would have instantly tipped him off. Like, something weird just happened. What? Yeah, they wouldn't just shrug it off and be like, hey, whatever happened to Mojo during that fight we had like 3 hours ago with him? I don't know. That was pretty kooky, wasn't it?
And it's like, why bring it up then? Like, why wait 3 hours to address it? Like, I don't know. But
wait, Shadow, I know why. I think I've just figured it out.
Oh, okay. Lay it on me.
Bad writing.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Why didn't I think of that? Very true. Very true. But, yep. So Mojo takes Lester up on the apprenticeship opportunity and goes on the moon to essentially blow it up, which this brings me to another continuity kind of error. I don't know if you remember from the Power of Four. I'm sure it's been a long time since you saw that.
I haven't ever seen it, actually.
Really?
I never watched it because I didn't want to.
Well, I don't blame you.
But you can spoil away for me and the listening audience who probably has seen it.
So long story short, in the 5th episode of the Power of Four special, him pulls Saturn towards the Earth to essentially saw it in half. Like, he uses the rings as a saw blade, and it saws through the moon. And in this episode and in other episodes, the moon is like perfectly fine, which the reboot's not a continuity heavy show. And I mean, the same can be said for most Sonic games, considering it gets blown up in Sonic Adventure 2 and then it's just fine in every other Sonic game after that. But, you know, the show is very selective in its continuity. Sometimes there are things that it does like to have continuity for, like,
that's true.
For example, Donnie's horn. Like, in the first episode, you know, it's like there's this whole arc about, not really an arc, but the plot is him discovering that he has a horn on his forehead the whole time, which is really dumb. But In all future episodes, the horn is visible. There's also the whole schedule bot mini story that goes on, where in the first season the girls knock him out and trash him into pieces, and then the second season he comes back for an episode, and it's like it's got the same story that was told during the road trip, an episode from the first. So like,
and why do they think people care about scheduled bot? Like, that is the dumbest character, I think. It's so stupid. Yeah, I don't know. But and I guess I would be lenient on the reboot for this, although I'm just saying this but I haven't seen the Power of 4 episodes. It kind of seems like a cartoony thing, like, oh, the moon got sawed in half, but it's better now, like, oh, maybe things happen. That sounds like cartoony continuity to me, but like, in the sense of it's not continuity really, but like that could have been a cool thing, like, shown like both halves of the moon or something. He's got like a bomb in between them, and he's like, I'm gonna blow up both halves of the moon, and they're like, oh yeah, that happened, all right, Mojo, we're gonna and then yada yada yada. But like, yeah, I could definitely see that would be like, blech, why reboot?
I'm gonna be completely honest. I would have rather just had the moon up there with a band-aid over the crack.
Oh, that would have been good too.
That would have been perfectly fine with me. But yeah, there's also this one like mini gag where the girls fly up to the moon to go get Mojo, and they bring their TV and video game console with them, and they're like playing the game as they're flying up to the moon. I will admit, I smirked when I saw that.
Yeah, that was pretty cute.
I thought it was cute, because
I would be the same way. I'd be like, oh, fine, all right, we gotta be like, well, because that's and this is an example of good writing, because they're like, they're pretty cocky that they can beat Mojo because we've already seen them beating up all the other guys, so they're just like, this will be a piece of cake. So that's good. That's good. I like that.
And I honestly wish there was more of that in the series overall, not just like one instance of it right here. Because this premise of the girls being unstoppable, it feels like it's something that like the premise would fit perfectly in the original, because they are more unstoppable. They only have lost a handful of times. And honestly, if I read this as a premise without knowing what show it's from, I would believe this could be an original episode. But
but oh well.
Yeah. Oh well. So yeah, the second half of the episode is basically Mojo on the moon with a bomb, and he basically threatens to blow it up, and the girls try to stop him, and he's got this whole magician shtick going on now because he's Lester's partner, and he uses like card tricks.
Yeah, which
his magic hat.
I hate it, but I also like it at the same time, because I was like, oh, he's actually like being evil and doing evil things, and that's cute. But then I'm like, oh man, he's like doing the whole apprentice thing. Like, ugh, I don't know. Yeah, it was both good and bad.
Yeah, I can definitely give kudos to Mojo for actually being evil. He does fight the girls. Obviously, the action is kind of lackluster, pun intended. But
the magician things are neat, though. I thought they were pretty cool. And again, like,
yeah,
if this guy, what's his name again? Lester? Is that his name?
Lester Von Lester.
Lester Von Lester. Okay, so like, I don't know if he's a magician. Like, shrinking things isn't really like a magic thing. I don't know. Like, do we even really see him doing any other like magic tricks?
See, the only magic that he really does
is the shrinking thing, right?
It's the shrinking thing, and then there is one part where he like levitates Mojo, and then at the end in the fourth part there's a moment where he turns the girls into toys, spoiler alert. But like, other than that, it's basically he just shrinks them.
I feel like they might have had something else originally for this character, but then maybe like mashed together a couple of different ideas and we're like, that, this is good enough. He's just weird, because I just think of him as that weird sparkly painter shrinky boy. I don't know.
Right. So to wrap this first episode up, the bomb goes off when the girls are unsuccessful in defusing it because Mojo distracted them for too long, and it turns out that it wasn't actually going to explode at all. It just shoots out confetti and a flag comes out that says boom, and it's kind of more of a fake out than an actual bomb, because as Mojo explains, he doesn't have anything to gain from actually blowing up the moon. It's just a method to get the girls away from Townsville so that Lester can shrink it down and steal it for himself. And this is kind of where the first episode ends off, on a pseudo cliffhanger, which, you know, it's good. It's kind of like the first episode of Power of Four. I know I'm comparing this special a lot to the other special, but I mean, there's just a lot of similarities going on here, where in the first episode of Power of Four, it ends on a very, like, kind of pseudo cliffhanger where the professor zaps Bliss and knocks her unconscious, and it becomes super serious despite being goofy and wacky a little bit before. The same way Mojo is goofy and wacky with the girls on the moon, and then all of a sudden Townsville just disappears and it becomes super serious, and the girls take it, you know, they're actually worried about what's going on.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, that's basically where the first episode ends off, and the second episode picks up, which, again, the girls are floating around Townsville. They're looking, trying to make of the situation, and Lester appears on this giant magic screen. So I guess this is another case of him using magic to kind of project himself to the girls. This is where he kind of leaves the girls alone, and there's a minor moment where Buttercup, out of rage, zaps her eye beams towards Lester's screen. And this is another subtle moment that I like, because it's a case of the girls using their powers out of spontaneous reaction, which is something I feel like would be common. Like, it's the same thing as if, like, Blossom were to sneeze and she would breathe ice breath.
Yeah, I actually really like that too. Yeah, because, like, it's just like this visceral reaction, but, like, they're using their powers like they would, because, you know, they're superheroes. Of course they do something like that. Yeah, so I agree. I like that too.
Yeah, I love little details like that. But then it turns out that, lo and behold, the professor ends up coming out of a bunker and says that he happened to duck down in time before the town could be transported away. And unfortunately, he didn't completely avoid the beam, so he kind of looks like a sort of, like, tiny midget version of the professor. His head is still, like, abnormally large, but it's even more abnormally large compared to his body now.
Yeah, he just looks like a kid again, basically.
It is a little off-putting.
Babby Professor, he's here. He's back and better than ever. Well, no, not better than ever.
Well,
unfortunately for that. Oh, well.
But yeah, so the professor goes on to tell the girls that he survived and that he is trying to think of a way that the girls can get Townsville back by defeating Lester. And this is where he brings up the three MacGuffins of the special, the three keys to unlocking the way to beat the final boss, essentially. Think the Chaos Emeralds, the Dragon Balls, the pendants from Zelda, like any MacGuffin like that. In this special, I should say, they're called the Hearthstones, not Hearthstone, which I, honest to God, could not stop hearing when I was watching this. I just kept thinking of card games. But the Hearthstones, which are basically, there's a pink Hearthstone, a green Hearthstone, and a blue Hearthstone. I wonder what those could be symbolic of. I genuinely have no idea.
Gee, I don't know. I haven't the foggiest clue.
I have no idea. Anyways, so that basically leads the girls to go on this hunt for the three Hearthstones, and that's where the second act of the special takes place across the second and third episode.
Now, actually, here's where I want to ask my questions. So, like, when the professor is explaining to the girls, like, about the Hearthstones, is he saying, like, you have to collect these three and then you can defeat Lester? Or is there, like, an actual power that they have? I forget if he explains that or not.
That's a good question. So what happens is the professor basically brings up the Hearthstones. And Bubbles and Buttercup are like, say what? Like, we've never heard of this. And Blossom's like, oh yeah, I read about it. And then she takes over and narrates about them. So she basically says that they're these three magical stones and that they allow the controller to basically grant them any wish.
That's right.
So
yeah, okay. That's very interesting to me too, because this is another instance where it's like, you know, the girls have always been fighting to solve their problems, but this thing is like, oh, it grants somebody a wish. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That feels like kind of just a very non-violent way of solving a problem, which isn't a bad thing. It just, you know, yeah, it's just another instance in the show where it's like, oh, well, we can solve a problem another way.
Yeah, exactly.
Without the girls having to fight for anything, you know. But then, and yeah, I don't know. But then again, I props to the episode because they did try to fight Mojo and everything. So, like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gotta
it's a
have
nitpicky
more of
thing.
that non-violent violence.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyways, the girls set out to find the first Hearthstone in Antarctica, which is, I guess, just where there's no really reason given as to why the Hearthstones are where they are. Like, I kind of wish there was more of a, not like a huge exposition or anything, but more of just an explanation for where they came from or why they exist or something like that.
Yeah, something really short, because they're just out of the blue, like, oh yeah, there are these things called the Hearthstones. It's like, okay, cool.
Mhm.
Again, another thing, like, why should we care? Like, they grant a wish, neat, but nah.
Yeah, exactly. There's no like there's no build up to it, or there's no explanation for it. It's just like, hey, these exist for this one particular episode so that we can use them at the end and win, but that's all they amount to, and it feels like they could be more significant than they really are treated to be, because again, they are the bare bones basic like one-to-one example of a MacGuffin. They aren't used by the girls on their adventure while they're out like when they get the first one, they don't use it to help them get the second or third ones. Like, no, it's just they collect it, they keep it, and then they use it at the end. That's it. So the girls go to Antarctica because this is where the professor says that the first one is located, and they end up arriving at this ice cave, which, again, it's just kind of a random cave that happened to be there, and for some reason, Buttercup feels the need to run in screaming as loud as she can when Blossom immediately warned her beforehand not to do that. That's a case of the punchlines not exactly being set up properly for the joke to really translate. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like the execution of that joke could have been a lot better.
It's also something I actually started, like, well, I thought it would be like one of these run-on jokes where, like, Buttercup just keeps running into the cave, and it's just, like, goes on and on and on. And I actually started skipping because I was like, oh, brother, like, this kind of thing again.
Yeah, so Buttercup runs in the cave, and they encounter this, like, ice crystal dog monster type thing, and it's funny, because in the first episode, the girls were going on about how they're unstoppable and they can't be defeated, and that they beat everyone, and then in this second episode, the girls encounter this ice dog, and then it knocks them down in one hit, and they have to be saved by who else but Supna, who has returned again for an appearance in the third season.
Now this, I mean, like, the girls not winning this fight at first is okay with me, because we'll see what happens later on. But, like, you know, yeah, this is at least to, like, introduce Sapna. And there have been times where, like, you know, like, somebody has come in to save the day, and then, well, you know, they typically turn out to not be who the girls think that they are, but we'll just keep watching this episode, or discussing this episode, and see what happens with Sapna. By the way, with Sapna, this is actually a question I asked you, because I was watching this episode, and Sapna, to me, in this episode, looks a lot less like the spider that she would normally, or you would think she would transform into, and instead she looks like a scorpion. And the girls continue to make references to her, like, oh, Sapna, you still change into a spider? And she's like, yeah, and she snaps her scorpion claws. So I don't get it. What happened?
Yeah, and that is an excellent point. That's scorpion anatomy right there. Like, the stinger is there, and, like, the claws? Like,
yeah, it's all there.
It's like, that's not a spider. That...
What were they thinking?
See, it's not even the first time this has happened, and I brought this up to you before we did our discussion, but I'm going to mention it again, because for those of you who remember Cheap Thrills, the season 1 episode, there's this creature that Bubbles discovers called a Chinchillosaurus, and I remember I even pointed this out in my review, and people were like trying to correct me on it, which I never understood. The creature that Bubbles picks up, it looks like a baby chicken. It looks like a little chick. You know, it's yellow, it's got the beak, you know, and everything like that, but it's got 4 legs.
Why?
And it's called a Chinchillosaurus, but it has no attribute of a chinchilla. Even the adult version, like the mother, looks like a chicken, not a chinchilla. Like, there's no correspondence to a chinchilla at any point there, the same way there's no correspondence to a scorpion with Supna. Like, she's still all about the spiders, and I don't really, like, I don't get that. Like, does the show not know biology? Like... Like, what's going on?
They all have to go visit a zoo or something to understand animals, because I don't know if maybe something was lost in translation. Maybe, like, they gave them the character design for a scorpion creature and snapped it onto Sapna or something, but, like, I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense. the dialogue is all different from, what she actually appears to be. So maybe they were just like, well, we paid for this. They animated it like this. Let's just go with it. the dialogue, don't even change the dialogue. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, I would believe it. They've already they put out episodes with like video errors and stuff. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if that was something that happened.
For those of you who may not remember who Supna is, she's the woman that the professor has this crush on in season 1, and apparently every time she feels love, she turns into a spider. And
that's another thing. Wait, is she feeling love here to turn into a scorpion? What? I didn't even think about that.
I was actually just getting to this point. There is a season 2 episode called Spider Sense, which kind of expands on Supna from season 1. In Spider Sense, she doesn't necessarily have full control of her powers, but she's kind of adapted to being able to turning into a spider creature. Like, she can, in some cases, make her body turn into, like, she can grow the spider legs, or she can get the pinchers, which again aren't spider features. But yeah, she is capable of controlling it to a degree, not completely. So this is actually, going back to the continuity thing, this is another case where there is continuity in the show. So believe it or not, Supna does have an arc, and that's cool. For those who actually still follow, all the episodes like I do, you can kind of see, okay, so she has kind of grown a little bit. So there's a case of character development. Yeah, yeah, she's evolved.
Sure. I'll roll with it. I'm tired.
Yeah, whatever. We're only on the second episode.
I know.
So this episode, the girls are going with Supna through the ice cave, and they're working together to kind of find the Hearthstone. Supna's acting a little peculiar with the way she's kind of, talking to herself and mumbling about how she really needs the Hearthstone and how she's using the girls to kind of get it for herself. She's kind of not acting normal, and Blossom even comments on this by saying things like, "I've never seen Supna confident before." And Buttercup and Bubbles don't buy it. It eventually leads up to the typical, one character is on to a character being suspicious, but the other two are playing dumb and don't believe the person they should believe and instead believe the person they just encountered. And again, I'll be addressing the way this episode handles that.
I think what's more important is the fact that this is all really centering on Blossom and how she's dealing with it. A lot of attention is focused on like Blossom's reaction to it, and we're really paying attention to like her interactions with Sapna, because she like doesn't believe that she's like, Sapna's acting really weird, something is going up. So all of that was leading me to believe that this was eventually going to like be a Blossom centric kind of episode, but it turns out that this whole entire time, somehow, what happens in the episode is they get into, if you want to explain it, you can go ahead and summarize the rest of it to lead up to what I want to talk about. Yeah.
So, yeah, because there's a lot of things I want to say too. So basically, it comes to a point where the girls are camping at night, and Supna is off in her own little corner, and Blossom wakes up and sees her, and she goes over to talk to Supna, and Supna's basically, talking to herself about how she wants the Hearthstone, and Buttercup and Bubbles manage to overhear the two of them, and Supna fakes Blossom attacking her. She essentially like falls on the ground and says, "Oh, woe is me." Blossom has ice madness, which is their explanation for why Blossom is not trusting of Supna. So, Buttercup and Bubbles side with Supna. They tie up Blossom with some Green Lantern rope and carry her away. And then they come in contact with the Hearthstone, and they end up fighting this Cerberus monster, in which Buttercup ends up beating in one hit. There's a lot of one-hit fights in this series. Nothing has changed over 3 seasons.
But at least she won this time.
That's true, and I can give some credit there.
Yeah, although I gotta say, there are a lot of times where it's just Buttercup who like defeats a monster or something. So like if that didn't happen so often, like it would be pretty exemplary, but I guess, I don't know. It's okay. I mean, hey, she won. Who cares?
Exactly. She gets the Hearthstone, which is green, so obviously Buttercup gets the green one. And then Supna basically asks Buttercup, "Hey, can I see it?" And then Buttercup pretends to almost give it to her, and then she drops it down a pit, and Supna freaks out, and Buttercup punches her in the face. So the explanation for why Supna was acting the way that she was is that in reality, she was the one who had ice madness, not Blossom. As it turned out, Buttercup actually believed Blossom the whole time, but she put on this facade to make her believe that she was siding with Supna, to lure Supna into a false sense of security. I will give the episode credit because I did not expect that. I am used to the girls not being smart. So the fact that Buttercup legit had me convinced that she was just being dumb and ignoring Blossom completely. But like the fact that it kind of switched on you and it showed that Buttercup was actually aware the whole time she was being smart, and she even tricked me. That's something that rarely happens in the reboot. Very rarely am I tricked by this show, but this was a case where I was, so I have to give it props. I'm genuinely surprised. The other thing that I guess we're both going to want to discuss is, did you also think that Supna was really Lester in disguise?
I just thought she was something in disguise. I didn't think it was Lester. I just thought she was like some monster in disguise. That's what I thought. Yeah, I didn't think it was
that's
her.
Fair. Yeah, I also didn't think it was Supna because, this sort of thing happens a lot. And
bait and switch. I was just like, oh yeah, it's really me. It's me. And then it turns out, no, it's not her. But
it was her. She just had ice madness, which is their explanation for it.
But actually, it's interesting to me that you liked like the twist at the end, because I actually thought it was kind of like, ugh, I didn't really care for it. But like at first I was just like perplexed. It wasn't like a dislike. I was just like, wait, she knew, but she made like copies of this stone? Like, why would she make a copy? Why can't she just like swoop down into the cavern and grab it again? She's a superhero. Like, I didn't get any, like, I was just like, wait, what just happened? Hang on a minute, because this whole time, like I said before, I thought that this was gonna like be a Blossom-centric thing, and maybe like Blossom was gonna save the day or something, but it turned out like Buttercup did, but she had taken no action like in the entire rest of the episode, and all of a sudden, whoa, she did it. She knew this whole time. She had another stone ready, and I was just like, what? Really? Because what we're gonna see in the next few episodes is like, I guess in the next episode, obviously, as we've already figured out, each of the stones represents each of the girls. And, like, Blossom and Bubbles are actually going to, as, short or long as they are, kind of, like, do something that reflects their character. I don't think this really represents Buttercup's character, unless it's Buttercup always saves the day and, like, does weird, unexpected things. But if this
I do agree there.
Yeah, but if this is the route that they were going to take, this episode definitely doesn't make sense in portraying Buttercup's character, and that's what I thought was really weird about it. Because, like I said, it kept focusing on Blossom, and I'm just like, wait, now Buttercup? That's weird. And then once I saw the other two, I was like, oh, this is even worse. I was like, this didn't make sense. Bad rating again.
I do agree with you on that front. I don't think that this is the best way of showing Buttercup's strengths. Because, I mean, you could make the argument, it's like, well, she defeats the monster by punching it. But, like, all the girls punch stuff. So, like, that's not really showing off how she's the toughest, brashest girl or anything like that. And the way it's kind of shown to be this sort of intelligence, in a way, of seeing through a character's facade, that seems like something Blossom would do. That's why she's so skeptical the whole time. I will definitely agree with you that this doesn't necessarily represent Buttercup's element, for lack of a better word, compared to, like, Blossom's intelligence or Bubbles' cutesiness. There isn't that much of Buttercup's, toughness or anything like that, aside from her punching it one time and then punching Supna in the face too, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, there wasn't really a reason for me to be like, oh yeah, go Buttercup, because like she has been so inactive, and just the whole premise of like, oh yeah, she knew all along, felt like such a cop-out to me that it didn't feel like a surprise. It felt like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know. That's why it ended up not feeling very satisfying to me, but I don't know. Your mileage may vary.
Yes, that's completely true.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm defensive of it is because it doesn't do what most reboot episodes would do in making Buttercup just an idiot. Like, it doesn't just say, oh, well, she's just going to ignore Blossom and ignore logic and, treat Blossom poorly over this new Supna character who's only been in this series 2 other times. Like, Blossom is her sister. Logically speaking, you're more inclined to trust someone you know extremely well, especially someone you know to be trustworthy, like Blossom, versus Supna, this woman who's been in a cave for whoever knows how long. And I did bring this up briefly, but I was also surprised that it was actually Supna the whole time. I did think it would be Lester in disguise using some type of magic thing.
Yeah, I totally thought it was just, I didn't think necessarily him. I just thought, oh, she's going to be some demon that they have to like destroy in order to get the stone or something. I don't know.
That's fair.
Yeah, but yay. They surprised me. Woohoo.
And I guess the last thing that I just want to mention about this episode is there's a line that Blossom says where the girls are kind of floating outside the cave when Supna leaves, where Blossom goes, "Oh no, we forgot about Townsville."
Oh, that made me so mad. I was like, wait a minute. And like the whole entire point of getting these Hearthstones is to save Townsville. How can you forget about Townsville when you're actively participating in something that is going to save it? I didn't get that.
That's exactly my thing too, because it's like it's not like they got sidetracked and did something completely unrelated to the cause.
It had everything to do with
they were literally doing exactly what they needed to do. Yeah. Like, they got the Hearthstone. That's what they went there to do. How did they forget? It would have made
more sense if she was like, all right, girls, let's get back on task. Like, let's keep going. But she didn't. She's like, oh no, we forgot. No, you didn't. You didn't. Calm down.
I thought that was a poorly worded line. I think that could have been written to make a little more sense in context of what was going on. But that leads us into the third episode, which is titled Maze Days. Oh, I should also mention that the second episode, I don't believe I said it by name, was called Stone Cold Spider.
Ugh, doesn't even matter. The episode titles are so bad. Although, you know what? Maze Days, not too terrible. That's not too terrible.
I'm gonna be honest. The only, you know what? No, Maze Days isn't bad. The fourth episode is honestly the one I think that has the best pun out of all of them, which is Heart to Hearthstone. I thought that one was, not passable.
Not bad.
Versus something like Stone Cold Spider, which anyways, Maze Days. So this is the third episode. The synopsis for this one is: the girls must enter a cursed jungle temple to obtain the last Hearthstone. What this premise does not mention is that the girls actually obtain the second Hearthstone in this episode as well.
But it's just a side story. It's not important because it's Blossom. And
right, exactly.
No, why did they treat my baby like this? Oh, Blossom is my favorite Powerpuff Girl, everybody. And I don't like it when she gets the short end of the stick. Just makes me sad.
Well, at least your favorite girl has a special power. No, I don't count curling the tongue.
It's so special. That's a cool thing.
No, I don't count that.
It's rad. And it's so her. It's so Buttercup.
I guess. Anyways, I don't know. Do you want to describe the Blossom part then, since you're
go ahead. Describe away. I'll just sit here crying in silence.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Well, yes, it's just the first 2 minutes. It's very short, but basically the girls find an underwater kind of shrine or whatever, and it's basically got this riddle on it. I forget exactly how it goes, but it's something along the lines of you take something and you leave something of equal value in its place, and that's basically the answer to the riddle, where the girls want to take the Hearthstone, but they have to put something of equal value in its place, and obviously value is all in the eyes of the beholder, so Blossom puts in, I believe it was like her first A+ or something like that, which...
Okay.
I mean, I understand that. That makes sense. Blossom's giving up something, but I'm surprised she parted with it so easily.
Yeah, that's this whole entire sequence goes by so fast. They're all of a sudden in this underwater ship, and then chaos ensues because the ship is cursed and everything, and they have to do this whole, switcheroo thing with Blossom's A+. But it just goes by so fast. It just feels like, I don't know. It's just a really weird thing. And because like this whole entire premise is like each Hearthstone is, representing one of the girls and like shows something about the girls, like, I don't know, it feels like equal time isn't given to each girl. And that's kind of something that I was just like, I mean, you don't have to do that, but it didn't really seem fair to me in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that this could have been split into like 2 equal halves, because I feel like there are some segments of Bubbles' story that goes on, you know, that could have been omitted.
Yeah, it goes on like pretty long.
Yeah, I definitely think that there should have been some time where Blossom is like, you know, the whole idea of this riddle is giving up something of value, like something that's, you know, you feel very strongly about, that you have a strong, you know, mental connection to. This is Blossom talking about her first A+. Now, especially for this Blossom, who's like super crazy about getting A's and stuff like that, for her to just toss it away like it's nothing, that doesn't really give the object she puts in there value. It doesn't feel like that's something that's worth getting the Hearthstone for to the audience. It doesn't feel like she gave up something that is of equal value. Like, it's
basically just the reboot's way of telling us she's the smart one, pretty much, I feel. Because it's I don't know. It's just, it's done so quickly, and again, I feel like it's just not fair to be giving, you know, different, you know, lengths of the show to like the girls. Like Buttercup and Bubbles get these huge things, which in Buttercup's case, like I said, I don't feel like that really represents her character to begin with. So like giving her this huge thing that doesn't really amount to anything, and then giving Blossom this thing like, oh, let me give my A+, ta-da, I'm smart. It just feels, I don't know, it just isn't equally weighted.
Yeah, there's definitely an imbalance there. I agree. Long story short, they get the pink Hearthstone, so Blossom has her magic MacGuffin. That's 2 down, 1 to go. And this leads us into the third Hearthstone temple, which is in a jungle somewhere. Also, there is one thing I forgot to mention. There's this running gag in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th episodes where Bubbles is leading this pack of, I believe they're geese. I don't think geese, I'm assuming.
I don't know, they fly. Like, I have no clue. I don't care.
Yeah,
I hate them.
Each episode features Bubbles leading this pack of geese, and every time she like, okay, I'm leaving, you guys handle it, and then they swarm everywhere. And I thought it was cute because it just felt like something Bubbles would do. I thought that the subtitles could have been funnier.
Yeah, it's a real gag, a gaggle of geese, if you will. I was so uninterested in it. I'm so sorry. It's definitely like just something that they threw in because, again, the jokes that they write go on for way longer than they should.
Right.
It has and I'm using like gigantic, huge, like finger quotations right now, a payoff of sorts at the end, but like, yeah, just remember these geese are here, they're doing their thing, and I hate them.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't care if that sounds mean. Good.
That's fair. So yes, this features all 3 of the girls basically wandering into this temple. There's a security guard who's there for more humor. She basically just charges them $5 for entry. That's all there is to it. Bubbles basically gets isolated from the other 2 girls and wanders through this whole temple in order to find the Hearthstone. That's literally the whole episode. It's very basic compared to the other 2 before this. There's not much going on. It's literally just Bubbles looking for this object, and she encounters things along the way.
And I gotta say, I actually kind of enjoyed it a little bit. Because I could definitely see original Bubbles getting in this kind of a situation. Because she is, like, the baby, you know, and she does get easily scared of things sometimes. So I was totally buying it. Like, this could have totally been, like, something maybe, like, in the original show. It would have worked in a way. Because, you know, Bubbles is just, you know, she's scared. She doesn't want to be alone. She doesn't want to be away from her sisters. So she gets into all these really scary situations, and then she says, like, well, what would Buttercup do in this situation? Which I liked. She gets caught in between these 2 walls that are closing in on her really quickly, and she's just like, oh no, I'm so scared, I don't know what to do. Even though, yeah, she is a superhero, but she's afraid. Like, she's a little scared kid at that point. She's just like, what do I do? Well, Buttercup would just be like, I'm gonna use my super strength and I'm gonna punch a hole in the wall. And she starts punching a hole in the wall, and then once she realizes that she has escaped, she's like, oh, I did it. And I was just like, that's such a Bubbles thing. Like, that's so cute. And I was like, this is Bubbles, this is her. Like, you got it.
Yeah, it was definitely the most adorable part of the episode. I could not help but crack a smile when I saw that. I was like, I thought that I will give props to Kristen Lee, who's the voice actress. She did a great job with the delivery there.
She really
and I thought that, like, the way Bubbles is, like, kind of, like, tearing up, and she's, like, you know, cowardly, and then she's just like, I'll just punch the wall, and then she, like, just punches a hole. Oh, my God. Yeah. I was dying when I saw that.
It was very cute.
Yes,
I did like that.
This is so cute.
Mm-hmm.
There's this gag with Bubbles pretending to not be a scaredy cat anymore. She wants to be a regular cat, and she goes around like hopping around, and she puts on this fake cat nose. And I was like, you know, this is cute. This is something adorable. Bubbles would do.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, to cope with this. Okay. Like, I'm in a scary situation. Okay, let's cute it up. It's okay. Now I'm a cat. Exactly. Everything is fine.
Yep. Yeah, I liked it. I definitely like these moments. There's also this moment where she encounters a pizza guy who, according to the episode, has been wandering the maze for 2 years. Let's not question the logic behind this, because there's no way the guy would be alive for 2 years. But Bubbles essentially makes friends with him. She's like, hey, I'm not alone. I'm lost in here too. So are you. Hey, how's it going? I also, there was another gag that I liked, which was she was describing Buttercup and Blossom, and she's like, they're about my height, you know, the slightly different hair, but like, and I'll forget it, they're impossible to describe. I don't know.
That was cute too.
I cracked a smile with that too. Yeah, I definitely think that when it comes to humor and the way it was portrayed, this episode is definitely the peak of the special.
Yeah, it's actually, I would definitely say this was like this whole Bubbles part was like probably my favorite part of the whole entire thing, because I was like, oh, she's actually acting like her character for once. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it was entertaining at that as well, because it's like, you know, she has to solve these, well, speaking of solving, she and the pizza guy come across this like riddle, this door that has a skull face on it. And I can't, you probably have the riddle written down somewhere, I bet, don't you?
It's I don't remember it word for word, but it's something along the lines of give the skull eyes to see.
Yeah, something like that. It's not the best riddle ever, but like, yeah, it's like give me eyes to see. And she's like, okay, I don't get this. And the pizza guy's like, I know, I've been trying to like figure this out for like a million or like the 2 years I've been here, dog. And she's like, okay, well, how would Blossom solve this? She'd solve it logically, you know. And she's like thinking, oh, then because of that, she thinks, oh, my hair ties kind of look like blue eyes. Let me put the beads into the eye sockets. And then she opens the door that way, which I thought was, I mean, I was like, that's kind of like simple, but like whatever. Like it's still cute that she's like thinking about her sisters and that. And basically the pizza guy is also, he's just like this, I don't know. The only real purpose he ends up serving in this story is giving Bubbles a replacement hair tie for the one that she used on the door. And he's immediately disposed of by a trap door that opens up on the floor, and then he just like falls through it and he's gone. It's like, I think that's the last time we see him. And I was just like, oh, that's a little, you know, like that's not depressing, but like, oh, it's disappointing. He does, like, he's kind of cool.
He does show up at the end for a follow-up gag for like the last line, but otherwise, yeah.
But that's the only.
No, he's pretty much forgotten. But yeah, as you said, I definitely thought it was cute, and it's definitely, again, something Bubbles would do. And then she enters the room, and this is kind of where it takes a turn, because she encounters the blue Hearthstone, and as the pink Hearthstone became an octopus creature and the green Hearthstone became a ice Cerberus monster, this one becomes a giant boa of some kind. And Bubbles essentially tries to fight the boa the same way that she solved the problems with Buttercup and Blossom. You know, she tried brute force, that didn't work. She tried the Blossom method, that didn't work. You know, she ultimately has to come to realize, you know what, my sisters may be great at what they do, and their methods certainly work, but I have my way too. And she essentially defeats the boa by hugging it to death, which, again, is something Bubbles would kind of do.
Yeah.
She would use her cuteness and adorableness to defeat it. Exactly.
She used her compassion. and that's definitely the Bubbles way, but like, I don't know. That kind of felt flat to me, because she ends up using her weird Green Lantern powers for it, and she makes like a million bubbles, and they all kind of like hug slash strangle this thing to death. So it's like, I don't know, that I was kind of like, that's not, I guess that's your way, but like you had to use your weird powers for that. I don't know, because like all the girls have that same power to like do the Green Lantern thing, but like, yeah, I don't know. But I mean, but all nitpicking aside, I liked it for like her character thing. But I mean, I don't know. There could have been maybe a better way of resolving that would have been more bubblesy. But I don't know. Maybe do the kitty thing and be like, hey, be a kitty with me, and then the snake's like, what the heck?
Right.
What are you doing? And then she's like,
Right.
let's hop out of here. And then she like leads into like a trap door or something where he would fall in. Yeah, and then she could grab this. I don't know, but it could have been something else.
I think what might have worked is if they did something like if Bubbles used the copies of herself and they grabbed the snake and used it as a jump rope or something like that. Or if like...
Yeah, I would just have taken out the copies entirely. I wouldn't have done the copies.
Another thing she could have done is she could have just, instead of copying herself, she could have just literally just gone up and squeezed
just
the boa.
herself.
Like super big hug.
I mean, she did something like that in the movie. She like hugged a monkey to death. So like,
yes,
she could hug anything to death.
Clip. I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was overall a good episode. I'd probably, honestly, I'd probably even say it's the best episode of the 4.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely I would. Yeah, I would say, and I would say for anybody listening to this, if you do get a chance to check it, like, I mean, I know, like, you don't want to watch the reboot, but, like, seriously, like, this one part, I would definitely say, like, check it out, because it is very bubblesy, and, like, I mean, we're saying this, so, like,
yeah,
that really says something, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so the 4th episode, which is titled Heart to Hearthstone, again, I personally would say this is the best of the 4 titles in terms of a pun, but it's still not amazing, but it's good enough. In the stunning conclusion, the girls learn that Lester has one more trick up his sleeve. That's the premise, so I can give it props. So yeah, basically, the girls have gotten all 3 of the Hearthstones, so they decide that, okay, hey, now it's time to go get Townsville back. So they go back to where the professor was, and they meet up with him, and they're like, hey, professor, let's go save the day. So they grab the professor, they fly up to Lester's Las Vegas-y type floating cloud that isn't Allegro's cloud, and they infiltrate the base and attempt to put the Hearthstones in Lester's magic wand. I will say that as soon as I saw them enter the room and there was like, supposedly Lester sleeping on that chair.
I heard a voice. I heard some snoring that I know all too well. And I was like, that's not Lester. That's not Lester at all. That's Mojo.
Mm-hmm.
That's old Mojo.
Exactly. That's the first thing I heard. I was like, you know what? Like they weren't even trying to disguise it with the breathing. No, that is literally Mojo's voice right there. I'm like, okay. So saw that one coming.
Yeah.
But,
well, then it's like, that's a tip off. Wait a minute. Something's not right. Because that's Mojo.
Exactly. And yeah, basically the girls throw the 3, well, they don't purposely throw the 3 stones, but basically the 3 Hearthstones get magnetized, I guess. There's like, they get pulled into the wand, and it turns out that the professor is revealed to be Lester in disguise the whole time.
He tricked them this whole time.
Oh, wow. A magician did a trick? Wow. But yes, it turned out that the professor was actually shrunken down with the rest of Townsville originally, and Lester was in disguise, which again goes back to the whole previous episodes, him helping the girls. Like when I was talking about thinking that Supna was the one in disguise, it was actually the professor that was Lester. So I was right in a way, but not completely.
Yeah. I actually was surprised by that. I was like, oh wait, I wasn't expecting him to not be the professor. I was like, oh, yeah. Cool. I was like, that's neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at, I thought it would be Supna, but it wasn't. It was the professor, and I didn't expect it to be the professor. The professor wasn't acting suspicious the way Supna was. Like, yeah, the professor isn't doing anything suspicious, and he wasn't, like, dropping any hints the way Supna was. And,
Yeah, so I thought that was actually a really good case of good writing, because, like, I didn't expect it. Good job. That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
because then we push that whole entire like bait and switch thing out of the way, because then we're not expecting for them to actually end up doing it in the episode.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, ultimately Lester ends up winning. He gets the 3 Hearthstones. He reveals that he was just using the girls to get what he wanted. That was his plan the whole time, so that he could defeat them. He dons this whole new look. He gets fiery yellow and red hair that stands out. He's got this whole black
He's definitely got like a heat miser look going on here. Yeah.
Actually, Heat Miser is the perfect look because that's exactly what his hairstyle is.
Yep, exactly.
I do prefer his regular appearance more, just in terms of the way it looks. I mean, I get that it's supposed to show, hey, he's more powerful now.
Now he's more evil because like he already was evil, but I guess now this is like the second form. I don't know.
I like the hair and I like the outfit, but I don't like them together. Like, I feel like if there wasn't that blue on him, if the blue was red or yellow, and there was maybe a couple more details that reflected more red and yellow to give it more of a scheme, then I think it'd look better. It's fine. It's harmless. It doesn't ruin anything. It's not like I can tolerate it way more than I can tolerate Bliss's hair.
And actually, while we're talking about his looks too, just by the way, one of the possible outcomes that I kept thinking for this was that this Lester guy was gonna actually be revealed possibly to be him because of the cheeks, because of like the eyebrows and the way that's drawn. And it got me thinking, like, maybe this was originally supposed to be him, but then they were like, oh, let's make a different character. Because I could definitely see him trying to pull off a scheme like this. Because the shrinking of cities definitely doesn't feel like a magician thing to do. It kind of seems like the kind of chaos that him would try to, like, wreak havoc upon the earth with. So I don't know. I don't know if anything happened while this, episode was being created, but it definitely seems more of a fitting thing for him than, like, this character. Because, it doesn't feel consistent with, like, the character that they created.
Right. That's actually a really good point. I guess there's one thing that I'm at least okay with them not doing that is that they already did that in Power of 4.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, I totally get that, and that they wouldn't want to redo it again, which is why I'm thinking, hey, maybe it was, like, another him episode, and then they were like, quick, we can't do 2, let's think of someone else. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know.
Especially because
this is just me guessing, but I could very well be wrong.
I mean, hey, it's plausible, but, it just... The fact that it's a special would feel like it's doing the same thing again. If it were a one-off episode, I think it'd be different, but...
No, I'm glad that they did that. I'm just wondering if maybe, because again, with my thing of bad writing, like, maybe this was an instance where they were like, wait a minute, this is bad. Like, now we even see this is a bad idea. So let's change it. So I don't know. But anyway, let's continue.
All right, so we'll pick back up with Lester getting the wand and essentially turning the girls into action figures.
Which is
I guess
weird.
Lenny Baxter would be proud of
that was definitely like a Lenny thing. And that also started getting me into thinking, like, well, this guy's kind of like Lenny because he collects, like, miniature cities and stuff. So it's another one of those instances where the reboot's just copying off of old episodes. Yeah. But not really. I feel like this may just be like a coincidence. But, like, the action figure thing is still weird. Like, I don't know. It's strange. It's strange to me.
So... long story short, Lester wins, and he kicks Mojo out. He says, it's not working out. You're a sad, pathetic excuse of a villain. Go away. And he kicks him out the building.
Yeah, I mean, we all already knew that by the mere suggestion that Mojo would ever become somebody's, like, apprentice or lackey or whatever. Yeah, so...
So, essentially how the second episode was about, well, it was more about Blossom, but it was meant to be about Buttercup, and the third one was about Blossom and Bubbles. This one is about Mojo and how he contributes to defeating Lester, because he essentially decides that, you know what, he's shrunk Townsville, he's captured the girls, there's nothing else to do, I need to become a cobbler. So that's what he does, and
that's the end of the entire episode, and that's how it
ends.
That's it. It doesn't make any sense. He starts making shoes. It's weird. This reboot is crazy, isn't it? Like, why would they just leave us on that? No, we were just goofing. That's not how it ends. That's not it. Tee-hee, that's our little joke. But no, in the episode, he does actually decide to become a cobbler. But then says, what's wrong with me? Oh no, he gets hurt, I think. And then he's like, that was wrong.
Yeah, he just hits himself in the with a hammer once. And he's like, you know what? This was a bad idea. So then... he's like, okay, you know
and
what?
even that joke
didn't
so
work.
dumb. I was like, what? A cop? What the hell? Who do they think Mojo is?
It just came out of nowhere. It was really random, but then again,
random
a lot
wacky
of this
humor. Yeah.
So Mojo essentially decides to go back up and, you know, try to convince Lester one more time to give him another chance. And there's this gag where he's climbing up the tower really, really slow. I thought it was funny at first, and then it kind of dragged on, as most jokes tend to do.
Yeah, when they try to do humor, it rarely works out. Sometimes it does, like when they actually get characters right, but when they don't, when it goes on, it's just bad.
And Mojo basically goes up to Lester and he's like, hey, give me another chance. I'll prove to you that I am a competent villain. And Lester's like, you know, okay, what have I got to lose?
Doubtful,
and
but fine.
Yeah, and he's like, and you know what? If Mojo fails, I get to blow him up, so that's worth it to me. I mean, he could just blow him up.
At this
now,
point,
but
I would have
whatever.
blown him up too. I don't blame you, dude. I don't like this. This Mojo makes me mad, and he's my favorite character in the entire series. So I mean, ugh, I feel horrible saying that. But anyway.
So then he puts on this this whole show and calls himself Mojo the Jojo,
which I actually thought was kind of cute. No, well that I thought was kind of dumb, but like dumb in a okay way. But I gotta say, like I liked like because he does like this brandish like I am Mojo the Jojo, and I was like, hey, that looks pretty good. I was like, he was drawn very well. He had a really cool pose and everything. I was like, I like that Mojo. That is a fine Mojo. I'll add that Mojo to my collection of Mojos. But like that was cute, you know. And he starts like doing all these magic tricks for. Yeah, which is like, wait, if he wanted to prove he's evil, like, why is he doing all these magic tricks? Like, okay, cool, whatever. Yeah, so that was kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, he basically just does it to kind of kiss up to Lester and be like, hey, look at how great you are. Yeah. You know, and it's like, he falls for it and ends up, Mojo's like, hey, I need some assistance, and he looks in the hat and it punches him in the face. And
which I was like,
Mojo's
good.
Like, haha.
Yeah, I was like, that's great. I like that.
Yeah.
Mojo's fighting back. But then Mojo does something, and this was my thing. I was starting to think like, oh, good. Like Mojo's actually gonna like take over, and he's gonna have like the scepter and everything, and maybe like the girls will punch him up and be like, yeah, you can't beat us. You know, he thought he could, but you can't. And I thought, oh, that would be great. That'd be awesome. Like Mojo could actually like be evil and double cross and maybe be like, this whole time I was the one playing you for a fool or something. But we can't expect that from the reboot, unfortunately. So Mojo ends up, does he use the scepter to release the girls? Is that what happens?
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because Mojo says, like, they're more powerful than you and they can beat you because I can't, I think? Like, I guess I can't beat you, but they can. And it's like, why would Mojo, arch nemesis of the Powerpuff Girls, all of a sudden be like, I want this, like, I get it that, like, he's been rejected by the guy, but, like, dude, you're Mojo Jojo. You could, like, defeat him. And then the girls can defeat you.
Yeah.
Like, he's just, like, he's treated by the reboot, like, as just, like, this, like, oh, he's so dumb. Like, he's not a competent villain. But it's, like, in the original, Mojo was, yeah, he could act kind of dumb. But he also was pretty competent. Like, he was a pretty good supervillain. He was, like, in the middle of, I don't know, what was it? Like a scale that Craig used of like, you know, like just super evil, not very funny to like super funny and like not evil at all. Where it's like him's on one end, the Amoeba Boys are on the other end, and Mojo's like in the perfect center of everybody. Like he can totally be both whenever the story needs it. So that's why I was getting so excited, because I'm like, oh, they're finally gonna like make Mojo super evil. This rules. But he's like, the girls are my friends. They can beat you up. I'm so weak. It's like, that's not you, my man. That is not who you are. Be true to yourself. But yeah, he isn't, and he actually helps like release the girls from their boxy prisons, and yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, he basically is like, all right, I'm gonna release the girls, and he does. And then Lester punches him. Well, he turns him into a goose and then sends him
that's right.
flying out the window.
I wanted to forget about that. But...
yeah, that's why I brought up the goose thing earlier.
Yeah, and that's that payoff that I was talking about, which isn't.
Yep.
But we'll talk about that payoff.
Yeah,
in a second here. Yeah.
Soon enough. But yeah, so the girls are free, and Lester proceeds to try and strike them with his wand, and then the girls, or Blossom yells out like stop or something, and then the thing stops right before it's about to hit them, and then he's like, that was weird, and he tries it again, and then Buttercup's like duck, and then the thing turns into a duck. And this is where the girls realize that the Hearthstones are essentially attached to them and their Green Lantern powers. So like, they actually have the ability to control the Hearthstones because they were the ones who acquired it. Which, in that sense, it makes sense because it's explained at the beginning. Those who control it, those who control them, those who earn them, are the ones who get their wishes granted. And the girls essentially did earn them. So, again, it makes sense. Still a MacGuffin, though. Like, completely. Still a MacGuffin. But, you know, that's how they end up defeating Lester, because they basically are like, hey, you know what, we can control his wand, so they rip the Hearthstones out of the wand, Lester goes back to his normal form, and then the girls essentially shrink him down.
And there's some, like, weak rating here where the girls are just like, oh, we're strong, and, you know, like, oh, we did it, we earned this stuff. It's just, I don't know. It's all talk, really. It's not, like, I feel like they're trying to inject some sort of, I don't know, moral into this, but, like, there's really no moral to be had. So, I don't know. I don't really understand why that was all added in, but they're trying to get deep and they couldn't really.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it amounted to. The episode ends there because Lester essentially gets shrunken down, and the mayor says something about, hey, he'll look nice in my bathroom, which
that scared me. I was like, whoa.
I was like, whoa, where is this going? Like, whoa, is this a kid's show still? But,
I was like, I was like, oh, they went there. Cool. I was like, I'm fine with this. But not fine with it at the same time. Oh, God, he needs Miss Bellum back.
And as we said, there's also this final shot of Mojo leading the geese. He's like, I am not an apprentice, I am a leader, and he's leading the geese.
He finally found his true calling, ?
I guess so.
I mean,
that's what ends the episode off.
Yeah.
So,
and
like,
it does continue the tradition of Mojo getting turned into weird animals at certain times. It's like, well, he's been the dog. I want to say he was something else at some point, but maybe I'm wrong. But now he's been a goose. Yay.
I guess
Yay
so.
for him. Yeah, I don't know.
Yep.
Oh, he was a fish. That's right. In Crisscross Crisis.
Yeah, he was. You're right.
That's why I was like, it's something. I know it's something. But yeah.
Yep, but that about wraps up Small World. As for some, I guess we can kind of give some concluding thoughts and an overall general opinion of the thing as a whole. The first thing that I just want to put out, so the whole beginning episode, the whole thing that starts all of this is that the girls think they're unstoppable. They think they can't be beaten. And it kind of sets up this thing where, you know, as the episodes are going on, the girls are losing to Lester. And when they're ultimately turned into toys, you know, this is supposed to be the moment where it's like, oh, hey, these unstoppable girls were finally beaten. But it's not really given that kind of, I guess, weight. It's not given that kind of attention. It felt like it's just, you know, Lester's ultimate victory was glossed over.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, this could have definitely been like a Mojo like a little more Mojo centric of an episode, because like it could have been like the girls are really unstoppable and Mojo is like trying so hard to beat them and he keeps failing and he's like being like driven mad by this. And then maybe it could have been like, oh yeah, maybe he does, like, okay, like, you know, in this weird wacky world, maybe he could have like looked up to this guy and was like, oh, you know, maybe you can give me some pointers, you know, because like you're really cool and I like you. But that, and then like the episode could have gone as it already has. Once the girls are defeated, Mojo could be like, wait a minute, no, I don't need any help from this guy, because like, even though the girls might be unstoppable, I can't have them stopped by anybody other than me, because like, I have to be the one to stop the unstoppable from being stopped or something like that, you know? And then like it just continues his like obsession with trying to like destroy the girls or something.
It's in the middle of listening to your description. It's like, oh my God, this is the Rowdy Rough Boys.
Oh, you mean like
favorite episode.
to set that up?
Oh my gosh, this is like clicking with me now. Like that whole episode is set up with Mojo constantly trying to defeat the girls and he always fails. And it gets to the point where the girls are rubbing it in his face and they're like, face it, Mojo, you'll never beat us. You're always gonna, always gonna lose.
Well, the setup is similar, but the way he would like try to solve his problem is different.
Oh, I agree. I was just drawing, like the way you described that, I was just drawing a comparison between a similarity in the way this episode and the Rowdy Rough Boys episode kind of have a similar opening. Overall, I can definitely say that the special is better than the Power of Four. I don't even think there's much debate there.
I can't agree with you or nor disagree because I haven't seen the episodes, but I bet you're right.
I'm sure most people would agree. You know, Small World was definitely better than the whole Bliss thing that happened a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I gotta say, like there were actually parts where I was like, oh, I kind of enjoy this. Like I'm kind of having fun with this episode, you know. And that typically, like I said, I don't even remember the last episode of the reboot that I watched in full, but like I don't know, like I always like. I would have to like stop the video. Not this time, but like in the past, like when I was watching it on like a web player or something, I'd have to pause the video and I'm like shouting at my screen, like, why are you doing this to me? Like, why are the characters doing this? None of this makes any sense, especially with something with like the Donnie episodes.
Donnie?
Yeah, where I just was, I'm like screaming the entire time. Like I just constantly would have to do that because I just get so annoyed with this and the writing and everything was just so bad. This one, I honestly can't even think of a point where maybe like once or twice I paused because I'm like, wait, hang on, you know, like Mojo would never do that. No, reboot. But like I actually was just continuing to watch the episode this time, and I was just like, oh, I'm actually enjoying myself without thinking like this sucks. You know, and of course there's, you know, the occasional moment where it's like there's a bad joke or something, but like this time I just kind of rolled my eyes and was like, whatever. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It's pretty like I'd say like 40% good, 60% bad.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely.
That's just estimation. I don't know. I have no clue. Like I would say like the bubbles thing is definitely really good, and like the surprises that happen were honestly surprising given the track record of the reboot because I wasn't expecting this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's definitely in the top half. I'd probably even say the top 25% of episodes for me. That's, I mean, relatively speaking, there's not a lot of competition for that top 25%, but yeah, it was good. It had a lot of good moments. There were some questionable bad moments. There were some moments where it kind of dragged a little bit, but they were few and far between, especially compared to some other episodes that go on for way too long. The villain was okay. Again, he was a one-time villain who was introduced, so he didn't really feel like he had as much of a reputation as he probably could have. But he was fine. He wasn't a bad villain. As you pointed out, I think that his whole gimmick probably should have just been shrinking in general, maybe not magic overall. It would have been more simplified in that regard, and man, they could have just had him
give him more focus.
It could have made him like a little shrinky dude and had him voiced by Rick Moranis. Oh, it would have been so good.
Yeah.
Oh,
that would have been good.
I would have been really happy. But yeah, like he just, I don't know. There's a lot going on with this character. There's so many weird things about him. Just like focus on one thing and build off of that. You know, give a defining characteristic, build off that thing.
But yeah, that should about wrap it up for the discussion. Unless you have anything else to add.
I maybe just that. Yeah, I was surprised that like I finally actually felt like I enjoyed a reboot episode. And how many episodes did it take?
That's a good point. Small World makes the reboot 100, gives the reboot 100 episodes.
No, you're kidding.
Mm-hmm.
You're kidding.
This 4-part special puts it at 100 episodes.
What? No, you're lying. It can't be.
If you count the 5 parts of Power of 4 and the 4 parts of this as separate episodes, yes, puts it at 100.
Oh my God. Hold on a minute. So wait, how many episodes did the original show have?
The original, well, okay, that depends. Do you count the 11 minutes together? Like, do you count two 11-minute episodes together as 22 one episode, or do you count each thing individually?
Have to, right? Because like these episodes aren't these episodes like only like 15 minutes long for the most part?
Or
shorter, actually.
The original has two 11-minute parts that are together for one 22 segment. If you count the original's episodes, all of them as 22-minute segments, whether they are one episode or two episodes in one segment. 78 segments of 22 minutes. But if you count them individually, like if you were to say that Monkey See, Doggy Do.
Okay.
Okay.
Then that would be like about 100. Well, like just estimating, like 150.
136.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So, wow. Holy crap. That's nuts. Whoa.
Yeah, it's close to surpassing.
That. Whoa. My heart stopped. Like, what? Oh my God. I can't believe it took this long for just like a decent-ish episode. And like a decent-ish like couple of episodes. Like, oof.
Yeah.
Boy, that's tough. Yikes.
If the reboot ends after a third season, and assuming that the third season is 40 episodes, then the reboot will have had 120 episodes total. That is including the Teen Titans Go crossover.
Good Lord.
119 not counting that. Yeah.
That's man.
Yep. But yeah, I think that about does it for our small world discussion.
Yeah. And what an enjoyable discussion it was.
Yeah, I had fun. Yeah. I definitely enjoyed this. I'm glad we did it.
Absolutely.
Once again, thank you, Bug, for joining me for this. I had a blast. Thank you, everyone who's still listening to this, however far on in you are. I'm probably going to have this edited down. But yeah, that should just about do it. So with that said, feel free to leave your guys' thoughts on the Small World special if you saw it down in the comments below. Also, be sure to let me know if you want to see any more discussion videos like this one, or like the one I did with Pie Guy 2 months ago, as well as any other guests that you'd like to see me do a discussion type thing like this with, and I'd be happy to try and get some other people on that I know.
And also, don't forget to check out Bugeyedfreaks.com.
I was just about to plug you and you beat me to it. I was just about to
wow.
Yeah. Make sure you go check out Bugeyedfreaks.com. Give her blog a follow.
Check
it out.
Send
it's
me
great.
questions. Ask me things. I love when people ask me things and I get to talk like a total dork about the Powerpuff Girls. It's like my favorite thing in the world to do. Please send me ask. Please.
Yeah, and you can also follow me on Twitter, join my Discord. Those links are also in the description, as well, again, as a link to Bugeyedfreaks.com, where you can check out Bug. So, I guess with that said, thank you all for watching, and till next time, Shadow Streak, signing off.